In 10 years' time, the Federation Kingdom of the East will end up falling by the hands of the 5 great sins, destroying everything. In order to prevent this, he has become their patron, but he low-key didn't expect it to be as much of a big deal. He had been a wage slave working 78 hours a week, and when he possessed a noble in a fantasy world, it was actually a good thing to him. But it was also a little bad because he was illiterate and void of any special power since he didn't know the language. We see a whole feast prepared for him, and he says that this was the good part. A maid asks if he's ready. For his bath, we see them washing him. He says that being a young master of accounts family means that he's useless and pampered, but this is the life that he needed. At this point, he had no idea where he was though. One of the maids says that the young masters will be returning tomorrow, so he should please sleep early tonight. The man asks who, and she says of course, the young masters, Leo, Antonio. She doesn't know why he's speaking as if he doesn't know about the Palacio family. He says that the name sounds ominously familiar, and he starts racking his head around it. The maids start freaking out because he is drowning himself as he wonders if maybe he's inside of psychedelia. It's a turn-based RPG that he used to play the hell out of, and he'd play it whenever he had the time. The thing is, no matter which route you take, the moment the 5 great sins appear, wrath, greed, sloth, pride, and obsession, the kingdom, nobility, and even the city, everything starts to fall into their downfall. And among those, the Palacio house, the eldest son, Leo, is the king of prostitutes, and the second son, Tonio, is the king of drugs, and his family is a noble one, full of troublemakers, which is part of the subquest before the main episode begins. He drops to his knees saying that he does know this place as subquest 1, asks you to investigate their house, and the main character thought that it had a very ominous vibe to it. He starts asking if this is a joke. He says that he's the first house to be destroyed by the 5 great sins, and we finally learned that he is the third son named Alan. As he lays in bed, he says he wants to go back to being a 78 or a weak wage slave. So what if he's living a life of luxury? He's going to die in 10 years, and this is worse than 6 months of unpaid wages. He asks why he had to possess a fantasy character with no powers as well, because everybody else in these types of stories gets special abilities. He then thinks about it, saying that knowing what happens in 10 years is like being a prophet, and that he can just remove the causes of this world's downfall. And that is why he decided to reform the 5 great sins for the sake of his noble life. He says surely it would be possible since they're still kids, but of course he has 0 powers. We get a 2-month time skip, and one of his men says that they rescued the orphans of the East Orphanage, but corrects himself saying that it's the human testing center, and they left the management of the orphanage to a girl named Yasha. This is Alan's knight named Evan. Allen says that his eyes are precise and he really is skilled. Evan says right, but asks if that's a compliment because he can't tell based on his facial expression. Alan says of course, and he looks forward to continuing their work together. He's forcing a bad smile. Evan says that he doesn't think he'll get used to it anytime soon, and recalls how he used to be really obvious with his emotions, but now he can't tell. Alan himself says that he feels like his possession of the body stopped at the face because he has a hard time smiling. Evan thanks him for the praise, and Alan explains that he's a rare character inside the game because he stays honest and loyal even amidst all the betrayals. He hired him as soon as he found him. Evan says that he mentioned before that this was all to save Yusha, and he can understand why now. Even in his eyes, as someone who worked a long time as a mercenary, she was definitely not an ordinary kid. She was strong enough that he didn't understand why she just gave in to being locked up, and she had a very strong aura to her. But he's curious as to why Alan didn't bring her here, as there's no benefit in keeping her there. Alan says that he's right, and it may just look like he's neglecting her instead of making use of her, but leaving her like that is part of his plan. Yeshua Blue. Dia is a non-human who signs a contract with another worldly being for its powers, and will go on to become Path of the 5 Great Sins, killing hundreds of thousands of people. But she shouldn't become Wrath if she grows up in peace. And that he took care of one landmine that he'll make up some excuse as to why. He tells Evan that he knows that it's just not yet time. Evan asks what exactly this means and starts thinking about it. Alan says that he needs to make sure that nobody talks of this, and just give them their funds and let it be quiet. As well as handing this letter to Yusha, Evan asks if it's important. Alan says he just wants to know how she's doing, and he figured he should reassure her somehow since she's been through a lot. Evan says he'll make sure it gets to her. As he's writing away, Alan says that he doesn't know if that really will reassure her, but it's worth a try. The real purpose of the letter was to put in quotes that he heard dozens of times. There was an archbishop in the game that said that this is a spell that will let one be friendly to non-humans and it should calm her down. I ain't reading the quote out, but he's pretty much just trying to get the otherworldly being to understand that they're not enemies. But it was too late as we see her unleashing a deadly attack, and she herself says that she's far too gone in the game. The attempts to calm her fail as the battle begins, but it might not be too late now. Since one's been taken care of, it's time for him to move on to his next target. It's a bit ridiculous to become friends with a monster just because of some quote, but maybe it'll work since they worship some god from the other world. And it's hard to fathom the way those guys think, and they're all like fanatics to begin with. Yusha begins to read the letter, and Evan says the Mona he can feel from her is unbelievable, and she's a strange child that is completely devoid of emotion. She asks Evan if Alan was the one who sent the letters, because if he did, why did he not want her by his side? Evan tries to make an excuse, and says that manifesting mana in this form is only possible in the Master Realm, and recalls Alan saying it's not yet time. And he tells her exactly that, saying that he himself said that she wasn't ready yet. She says she understands and instantly calms down. She reads the quote that the Archbishop in the game said and says that this is a promise that only her master would know, and she gets it. Now Evan is confused if he should fight or not as she continues releasing her aura. She says that she gets what he means, but for us readers, we understand that now he has the sin of wrath on his side. Meanwhile, Alan is laying in bed, saying that he's managed to extend his luxurious lifespan a bit, and even the moon feels like it's cheering him on, and he'll work hard in the next kid as well. Average groomer POV. Sometime later, Alan is in the library and a bunch of books fall off the shelf and hit him in the head. He asks if it's not here, saying that finding clues about the third boss is giving him a headache. Evan says that they have rescued the second child he had mentioned. Alan says that's good, asking if they're treating the child very kindly. Evan says of course after saving the child from the illegal slave market. But before he can finish, the doors to the library get kicked open and his brother Tonio enters immediately, talking mom to Alan. He asks why someone who's illiterate is holding a book, saying that he heard he's been studying recently and he wants to know the truth. Alan says that he's always such a bother, asking how the original Alan handled all this, saying that he'd like to hit him back, but of course he can't. He tells him that it seems he wants to use the library, so he'll take his leave. Tonio then puts his foot on his head, telling him that he sure does know his place, when suddenly something flies by his face. We see a knife stuck into the wall. He turns, asking who did this, and we see none other than Leo saying that he doesn't want to see blood first thing in the morning. So to get lost, Tonio and Leo start arguing with one another, telling each other to drop the attitude, and Alan just crawls away. He says that the Palacio County quickly disappeared in the game, but their power is greater than he thought. Basically, the scummy brothers are fighting. For the family head position, one of them is a huge figure of the underworld called the Prostitution King, and the other is a large-scale drug cartel manager named the Drug King. He can't mess with these two for the sake of his sweet life, so he starts crawling away as Evan slowly walks behind him, shielding him from the debris. Alan says that he's going to happily live as a weak and incompetent, mastered child. He makes it back to his room, and Evan says that the second child didn't seem ordinary either. Alan just melts into the couch, and Evan asks how someone like this found out about the illegal slave market and the secret bio experiments happening in another region. It seems like he's having a hard time keeping himself together. Even tells him that he's quite strange since he keeps sending children to the orphanage. But Alan says, of course the kid isn't ordinary, but it's not just that simple, as he's of a cataclysmic scale within a united kingdom composed of several nations. The central nation is the Kalian Kingdom. The person they saved from the illegal slave market was the second boss of the game, named Davis McCallion, after being sold into slavery and abused as he was passed from place to place. He became the embodiment of one of the 5 deadly sins, sloth. He then annihilated the kingdoms in the most horrific ways imaginable. It was in this part of the story where many players were surprised by the game's cruelty and difficulty. Contrary to his title, Sin of Sloth, he was noted as a very hard-working individual who had paid both debts and to services several times over, which is why Alan emphasized to Evan to treat Days very kindly. He tells him the reason he sent him to the orphanage was because it's not time yet. Evan says he expected as much, asking if the letter he sent to Yusha was about the second child. He says yes, and there was some small talk in there as well. He told her to take care of this slightly sick child that he sent her away. We see Darius with the other children still not having fun, looking devoid of emotion. Yusha approaches him, saying that he seems broken. She can tell by the traces on his body that it was the black goat, and that the great moon still has chosen him though. Then she congratulates him, saying that he should feel the power he's been bestowed with and let his potential be unleashed. And if he stays loyal and follows orders, he shall have his revenge. Then she starts to think about how she should send her reply, saying that she'll start with a light greeting. Back at the estate, Alan is still reading through all the books, asking where the third boss is located. But Evan says that there's big trouble. The second young master had an accident. Alan asks what's wrong, and Evan tells him that he's dead. Alan asks how he's dead already, as we see him laying on the floor, soaked in blood. They even held a funeral for him, and their father didn't seem worried in the slightest. Neither did the women he attended with, because they were just bored and wanted to leave. Alan asks why he brought drugs and women to his son's funeral, saying that he knew it was messed up. But it's indeed a dark fantasy. For him to accidentally fall to death is different from what he remembers back in the game. His brother killed him and cried the entire time, saying that he's now the rightful heir. He cried desperately. But the face he's making now seems like he just got a lucky break, and at least he should try to hide his emotions. The culprit must either be Leo or his followers, but regardless, he just has to resolve the deadly sins and let the family do its own thing. A year later, as the successor problem was solved and Leo absorbed the drug business, the county became even more peaceful. As Evan and Alan are sitting in their room, he and Yusha have become pen pals. She told him about all of the children, and Alan's just glad that they were becoming friends. At the bottom, she's been attaching the sponsor list for the month, and he says that it's interesting that more sponsorships are appearing for that small orphanage. Evan says while it's unusual, it's a good thing nonetheless. And about the thing he's been searching for, he received a call from the Information Guild that they found a clue. Alan tells him that's a relief, and it must be an ancient book about the third boss. He'll finally get to find the guy as well. He says that it's a peaceful evening and everything is going super well. It jumps to somebody being murdered at a drug distribution site named Margot. We see two men saying that the eldest, son of the Palacio family, is quite generous and their organization now has a few hundred members. Turns out they weren't the ones murdering people, as they were surprised to see all of the corpses and they watched people raise their blades to their own throats and end their own lives. The man turns towards his friend who is doing the same thing, and he watches as every single one of them plunges their own weapons into their throats while screaming for help. We see a small figure in an alley, and we hear Yusha saying that she enjoyed the puppet show today and there's more to report it. Themes as it was none other than Day as controlling them all. He asks if there was a point to doing this, and Yusha asks if maybe he pities them. He says no because they grind people to create drugs. He just doesn't know if this is anything to do with his revenge. She says of course it helps. This is the basis to create space for him to return. They can't let the place be shabby. When he finally arrives, Daya says he understands, and they both vanish in an instant, flying into the air. She says that everything will proceed according to his will, and that the blue moon shall be his sword as they leave a marker behind one burned symbol carved into the street. Like that should aliens do when they steal our crops. Alan says that it's been 2 years since he and Yusha became pen pals. We see Evan walking around asking where he is and finally finding him in the backyard. Alan is practicing something, and Evan tells him that the fifth has been successfully sent to the orphanage as well. Alan can't believe it. In the last 2 years, he saved the last remaining deadly sins, and he starts feeding Evan cake. He says he had some trouble finding greed. The third, but making Evan work with his game knowledge, has worked out. He starts throwing sweets, making Evan do tricks for them. Alan tells him that he can now rest. Evan asks if this is all for the duties related to the orphanage. Alan says yes. Evan says that's a relief, but asks if Alan isn't happy. Alan tells him he is, but Evan says he doesn't look like it. Alan says that he's smiling right now, pointing to his lips, and we see a very small crease. Evan says that if he says so, then sure. Sometime later, Alan stretches and lays down, saying that he never expected things to go so well. The bosses of the game all became the 5 deadly sins as a result of their horrid pasts. And even if this is the past before they became sins, the chances of saving them all before they underwent those events was low. He was worried he'd rescued them after they'd already been broken, but he feels a lot more relieved now. Alan asks how the orphanage is doing, and Evan says that his usual things are going well, handing him a letter. They once looked like broken dolls, but now all of the children have lightened up a lot, Alan says. He guesses they won't need to hire a separate caretaker for them. He didn't think Yusha would do such a good job, but maybe because of her background, she feels sentimental toward the orphanage. Yusha is a nice girl in some ways. Evan asks if the letter says anything important. It pretty much just says that everyone's okay, and that some are growing much faster than the rest, but he doesn't need to worry about Deus at all. And that the other kids are all fine too. They all seem to be having a great time. Alan says he's just glad they seem to be growing up well. Alan says this means that environment is really the most important aspect. Evan asks if he actually plans on meeting them, since he always says the time. Alan says that about that, he never actually plans on meeting them, though it would be nice to stay close. They don't exactly have personalities that he'd like to be around in game. Maybe it's because of how brutal the process of them turning into sins was, but it won't be as bad now, since he rescued them before all of that. Still, he's scared, and he says maybe in 5 years. Evan says he understands. In the meantime, Alan wants to work on skills to protect himself. As we see him practicing magic, he says that fortunately talent's needed, and that this body is perfect for it. Evan then asks if he's heard of Blue Moon. Alan says no, and Evan tells him it's an organization that has recently gained fame for hunting down criminal rings. Alan says if they're cleaning up the trash, that's good then, and he's never heard of them, so he's sure they'll be gone soon. Evan says that he heard they even kill nobles too, and he thought Alan would know about them. Alan gets scared, telling Evan to sleep next to his room from now on. That night at the orphanage, Yusha says it's time to hear the Blue Moon's report. This week, one of the girls says that she took all of the slave traders' heads. She's the sin of pride named Shol Rang, and she says they couldn't figure out who she was and that her clothes are great. She'd let them live if they could tell her what color her eyes were, but they couldn't answer. The sin of greed is named Ren, and she says that all of the corpses were melted. One of the boys, because he finished up in the south too, and he took care of the illegal human testing grounds, turning the Avalon Freichain, who were causing trouble, into minced meat. This is the sin of obsession named Rotten. Yeshua says that all things will go according to his will, and they exist for the sake of the great moon. We already knew they were the Blue Moon, but Alan will be in quite the shock when he finds out. Davis says that they have a problem, though Yusha asks what could be a problem when all is perfect under his will. He says that the head of Avalon is the eldest son of the Count family where he resides, and he found a dangerous written order while cleaning the south up. It appears to be targeting their master. Yusha looks furious, asking what she just heard, and begins to release her aura, which scares the other children she says that she sees, and that they're going to slowly poison Alan and kill him after their father dies. She says that she refuses to let this happen. 2 years later, the Count actually dies, and his death is outwardly known to be from heart failure, but it's clear that it happened because he overdosed. We hear Leo asking about the Blue Moon, striking again, and they tell him that they heard last night all of their men were wiped out again. Alan says they seem to be more wary of them now, and so the Count's death without a single person. Morning ended in complete silence. As Alan is walking with Evan, Leo is glaring at him with killing intent. Evan asks Alan what he plans to do now. Evan says that at this rate. That Monin will become the head of the family, but wonders what he's doing with all those bags. Alan tells him to get his stuff ready, and they're going to run. Evan asks if they're really planning on leaving, and Alan says not completely, they're just going down. Evan asks if he's talking about Rod Mill, and Alan says exactly he's been planning to leave for a small town to the south of their county. Called Rob Mill as they're leaving, Leo watches and looks frustrated. Alan seems to be making breakfast for himself, and Evan is bringing in some juice. And they only got to live this happy life for 3 days because he returned for Leo's funeral. He says he can't believe he's back here, and he wonders how Leo's already dead. Turns out he was stabbed in the heart, and Alan wonders who could have killed him. He goes to ask about the cause of death, and all of Leo's men start freaking out, saying they're sorry for looking at him. Alan just wonders what's going on, as not only are Leo's men, but even the maids avoiding him. Evan approaches him, and Alan asks if he figured anything out. Evan says that he wants to know if Alan is the one who made Avalon vanish overnight. Alan looks around the room, confused as hell. We get a flashback to when they left the estate 3 days ago, and Evan asks if it wouldn't be better to go to a city instead. Alan says no, because this is the final destination that he has planned. Saving the 5 great sins from misfortune and stopping the world from ruin was all he wanted to accomplish. And this town has nothing to do with the original story. Their family's villa is there as well. It's the perfect place for a noble to live, and he wants to take it easy while doing nothing, and everything has a reason. Evan says that he can't fool him anymore, and he always says those things when he's not bothered. Alan says the good things are great, and as they continue, this is when Leo was watching, frustrated, wondering if he should kill him or not, saying that it doesn't matter if he's alive or dead because he was planning to kill him with poison after their father's death. Either way, he says he was going to slightly head off to the border, so he's lost all reason to kill him now, and it may be because what matters with Avalon isn't going well, and something about Alan just bothers him. He tells one of his men to follow the carriage, and his name is Almond. We'll call him out for short, and he asks if he wants him to kill him. Leo is surprised, saying that Al has never once talked back to him, no matter what orders he gave him. So why is he asking questions all of a sudden? He says that it's his job to do what he's told before, getting stabbed straight in the chest. Leo asks Al why he's betraying him. Al says that he likes playing war, and it was fun up until now. Turns out that his real name is Hedon, and he is a member of the Blue Moon. He tells Leo that they have the creed that was taught to them. For the Red Moon, as the Blue Moon is that man's sword, it's only natural that he moves according to his wishes, and if anyone tries to harm the Great Moon, they will be eliminated. As he continues slicing through Leo, he says that he can act on his own accord, and that's why he was waiting for him to say that. To think it took him 2 years to finally admit to it, and Leo says his important. Don't let him go head on, says that with his words, Avalon will disappear from this continent forever. And it's sure unfortunate that the Great Moon gave him a chance to begin with. At the little villa, Alan wakes up saying that this place is heaven, and it's another peaceful day. He wakes up when he wants to, eats whenever he wants, and is able to live the life of a true noble. Kevin then comes in saying there's a letter, and that's when Alan reads that Leo was killed, and they're requesting his return, saying that his free trial of heaven expired after only a few days. Back to everybody freaking out at him, and Evan asks if he became a shadow leader or something. Alan says that these are crazy circumstances, but it's continuous, it seems. We see him sitting in a corner asking why he's the villain. Evan says that he's the only one who benefits from the situation after they left the estate. Leo is murdered, and he is the perfect alibi to become the Count's heir. Since Avalon is now gone, and with Leo's death, nothing will bother him. That must mean he is the shadow leader of the county who led the assassination of a sword master. Alan asks if he's having fun, wondering where he even got these cloaks from, but he doesn't know where to start with this. No organization is capable of killing a key figure of the underworld. For an instant, he recalls there being an organization that hunts other ones. Evan asks if he's talking about the Blue Moon, and Alan says maybe they're the ones behind it. Evan says that the Information Guild said the Blue Moon wasn't, though the Blue Moon leaves behind a mark instead of a corpse. But it is said that the members of Avalon were stabbed with a sword, and that the road to hell has opened up. Alan understands why everyone is scared of, but the Blue Moon doesn't come out in the game, and there's no way those weaklings are behind this when they disappear before the original story starts. So who was it back to Yusha? She asks if they left any traces. Rin says no, and Sholrang says it's the same here, there were only corpses. Deus as well says that he is back, and that there are only the remains of the Avalon soldiers. Rotten says it's just as she said, and he cut them all in half. Yeshua says with this, it's perfect. And that was how Avalon that dominated the kingdom turned to dust in just 5 days. Rotten says that he doesn't think the cleanup was perfect though, and Yusha asks what he means. He says that he found this, along with the nobles who were connected to Avalon, and that the Altia dukedom has a deep connection. Yusha begins reading it, saying that surely they already know what she's going to say. They start to get ready, and Rotten says that he'll take care of this quietly. Yusha then calms down, asking if the Information Guild side is still clean. Rin says yes, and this matter is being handled. Separately from the Blue Moon, Daya says all guilds act the same. They call it the Hell Sword, made by the Swordmaster. Rin asks if she could continue keeping tabs on the movement, and Yusha says yes, this matter must not reach the ears of that person, and she said it so many times, so surely they all know. Deus tells her that he was targeted by his family though. She tells him that wasn't an order. They are swords, and a sword must not think for itself. They must only move on orders, and that person knows everything and they can never disappoint him. Daya says he doesn't understand. For someone with abilities as overwhelming as Usher's to feel anxiety anxiety and restlessness simply because she's scared to be found out. It's strange, but he tells her understood everything is for the Great Moon. Back to Alan, he says that he doesn't want to do this anymore. After the funeral, there was a full month of endless duties and he was crazy busy. He just wants to loaf around and eat as that's what nobles do even though he's made enemies. Leo's death was supposed to be 6 years from now, but because the pattern of the brothers, that's changed. The course of the game shifted and all the backlog of family duties fell onto him. There's a knock on the door with even more paperwork, and he asks why everybody's working so hard. When the Count was here, they used to just slack off and skip work. It's because he was waving them over to drop off their paperwork. They mistook it as him being angry, saying they needed to work, but Alan wonders why they don't come when he calls, and maybe they're working harder because of the rumors that he's the secret mastermind. He just wants to quit already, and he wishes they would just manage things without him having to step in at night. Evan tells him that it's astonishing and quite shocking that he managed to reach the second tier after only 2 years of self-study he's got. Great talent, and normally it takes about 4 years of instruction to reach this. Magic also requires natural aptitude in many cases. Alan says that he agrees that his talent is decent, and he practiced hard for self-defense because he was feeling uneasy. To do that, he has to finally be able to control his mana, but what good is it if it's only half-baked? He's used every kind of magic in this fantasy world, and at first it was exciting, but now he's desperate to save his own skin. The truth is, he realized that his mana haul is insanely tiny and nothing is working out. Innate Monica capacity is like an athlete's natural weight class, and his Mona haul would be the equivalent. It's very, very, very small, and there's not a single amount of training that would cover it. If nothing works out, there might be another method. Evan tells him that the invitation to the ball has finally arrived. Alan asks what he's talking about, and we see them heading to the event all dressed up. Alan says that he's already tired from coming here, and that this is a regular aristocratic ball in the southern Austria kingdom in exchange for nobles. He's about to become a count soon, so maybe he should use this chance to network. Forming connections with nobles is crucial for a peaceful future, but nobody wants to talk to him. When he tries going out of his way, they just run away from him. Evan tells him not to be so upset, but Alan says not at all. This was expected. He knows they looked down on him for being low class and lacking refinement, unlike his esteemed great-grandfather's era. The current family is full of troublemakers from the East. Too bad he's misunderstanding it entirely. Alan says that he didn't come here thoughtlessly, and he'll unlock the social skill he secretly practiced. He raises a cup of wine, saying that the aroma is unique and that the scent is distinctive, and he'd like to have a few bottles at home. Then he starts smiling like an evil freak. He says that a gentle smile is essential, and the woman who owns the wine starts sweating nervously before running away, saying that she'll tell her father at once. Alan says this isn't what he was expecting, and people in the back wonder if he just blackmailed her into getting limited edition wine. Evan laughs at him, and Alan says that she must just be a shy lady. Of course, he's in denial mode. He did this over and over and over, and Justice got a lot of different stuff for free. Turns out that their family is far more notorious than he thought, and because the rumor that he removed those monstrous brothers spread, everybody is just avoiding him. Defeated, he says he's going to go get some fresh air, but we see a woman actually not afraid of him, rather. She seems curious. While he's outside, he wonders where it all went wrong, and a woman asks if he has a moment. He turns, happy that someone spoke to him, wondering who she could be. She tells him that her name is Loria, the third daughter of Duke Altea. He sees her approaching him and says the Altea family, one of the 3 major shadow players of Psychedelia, are known as the Northern Troublemakers, and there's no way she's a normal person. She then comes closer, and he says that he doesn't remember her from the game, and he doesn't think she appears anywhere in it. She says that she'll be blunt as she needs his strength, and she's going to be assassinated very soon. Alan thinks about it, saying that she was protected as the daughter of her father's mistress until now, but the Duke's condition has worsened, and she says that her older sisters will soon kill her, and that it's a mutual downfall situation. He says no wonder he didn't remember her. She must have already been dead and didn't appear in the game. She says that with the power he has, he could definitely save her. He tells her he'll decline, but she says she's not doing it empty-handed. She'll return half of the family's fortune, but he tells her that he'll be taking his leave. He can barely take care of himself right now, so it's better he doesn't give her any false hope. Even if he wanted to help, he's not the powerful figure the rumors claim. As he's leaving, he takes a glance back, seeing how sad she looked. He sighs, looking a little regretful, telling her that he wishes her luck and he hopes she finds a reliable ally. As he's going to leave, we see the kids watching him, saying that the family has approached the Great Moon and that they should pass it on to Yusha, but Rin says it's fine. According to the intel, she's the only family member not tied to Avalon, and she's the only one who's not one of Rudy's targets. Davis says that simplifies things. The rest of the family will be dealt with. Rin says that they should proceed according to the Red Moon's command, and that they'll focus on blocking information so that the Avalon case doesn't reach him. As he's walking away, he wonders if he has some kind of barrier warding people off. The woman from before who was staring at him greets him. He says maybe this time he can actually socialize with a noble, and he turns to greet her, saying that this is a face he's seen in the game before. Of course, there's no way someone would approach him first unless they were trouble. He greets her, and we learned that her name is Zenonia. She's surprised that he knows of her, and he says, of course, she's famous in many ways in the kingdom. There are 3 great shadow players, Altea of the North, Palacio of the East, and Zenonia, the troublemaker of the West. That's her family name. My bad. She asks if she's really that famous. She's the eldest daughter of Count Zenonia, named Kalia. He He says that if his family ran a gang, then she's more like someone who runs a smartly on criminal syndicate, and he needs useful connections to maintain a peaceful, noble life. For the sake of this, he must not get involved with her. He tells her that she's beautiful and she thanks him, saying that she'd like to talk more with him, asking what he thinks. He says he'd love to, but there are many eyes on them right now, and he just really wants to leave quietly. She says that he's just as the rumors say, and she looks forward to seeing him again. She walks away and he wonders what exactly that means. Ryan says that the case information is being well contained, but Davis tells her there's a new concern as they still have that one person keeping a watch on Alan, and it looks like he's being tailed. They say that there were no new orders and they should just keep watching, then eliminate them the next day. Alan and Evan head out, and Evan asks if this is the right place and if this is the canyon he was looking for. It's midday, but it's very dark inside. Alan says finally this is his real objective. Evan says if this turns out empty again, he's going to cry, but Alan says this time it's real in the game. It was easy to find. Truthfully, the reason he came all the way south under the pretext of attending a ball was because of the labyrinth. Here, it's the Labyrinth of Whispers. If you solve the riddles in all 8 rooms, you get a powerful artifact as a reward. He's memorized all of the routes and puzzles, and it's time to put his grinding skills to use seeing the labyrinth entrance. In real life feels different, even though he's run the dungeon countless times in the game. It sure is crazy. Evan says that the inside feels artificial, like someone built it, asking how he even knew about it. Alan says that he's come here often, and Evan asks when he had the time to do that. Alan says that he has many ways and they should just head in. Evan tells him to stop, joking with that expression, but as soon as they enter, they see a bunch of monsters getting crushed by giant stone hands, and Evan says that if he gets the riddles wrong, those things will slam down on them mercilessly as things continue to be murdered. Alana's just doing the riddle, but Evan's curious as to how he's so calm in a situation like this. They've worked together for 4 years, yet he still doesn't understand him, and his missions have no pattern. It all seems completely random. He's barely left the estate, and yet he seems to know everything about this place. Alan tells him that he's got it right, but it only opens once the mechanism finishes. Evan follows him, saying that the reason he follows him is very simple. Everything he does leads to a good outcome, and he wonders what he's going to get out of this. Alan says that finally. The doors open, but he feels like he's going to puke. He strained his neck, trying to keep it looking straight, and they entered the treasure room. It seems like it really is over, and Alan says that they should just take this ring and go. Evan says that it looks the most useless of all, but Alan says that taking anything else would only be trouble, so just leave it. As he finally obtained the oath of restraint, he tells Evan there won't be anything dangerous on the way back. Thanks to knowing the game route, it sure was easy. As they go to leave, Evan says surely that he saw this coming too, that the rock piles inside the canyon are golems. This is a new unknown enemy, and in the worst case scenario, he needs to get the young master out. Alan says this time he'll handle it. As he walks forward, Evan says he wants to trust him, but no matter what he's planning, finding an escape route should come first. As the golems start to get closer, they charge straight in and Evan yells, telling him that second-tier magic isn't enough. Alan says that he invokes the oath of restraint as he raises the ring. To the air, all of the golems instantly stop, as if time itself has frozen. He hears a voice saying, "Oh, fragment, inheriting the great will of Mikola. Speak the restrictions you wish to enact," Alan says. In the game, this appeared as a choice window, and he's surprised to hear a voice. He looks up, seeing a face forming. He says that the oath of restraint is an absorption-type artifact that, as its name implies, allows the user to impose restrictions on themselves in exchange for power. The voice almost makes the world feel very real. He says that for his first oath, and the voice tells him to speak, he will always perform the hand signs of Babylonia when using magic. The voice asks what it is that he desires through this restriction, and he says the power to twist the laws of the world a little further. It says granted. He says second, as she tells him to speak once more. He says when using magic, he will strictly chant the words of Babylonia. She asks what he desires through this action, and he says greater power to defy the world's laws. She thinks about it, and Alan wonders if the lack of reply means he messed up. He says he even mimicked the exact sigil icons just in case. By choosing both the hand sign and word restrictions, he can achieve the highest possible magic attack power. Thanks to repeated gameplay, he's memorized all the combinations used in the original game, and he says this has to work. The voice then says, granted, O human who remembers the gestures and mysteries of a forgotten god. I give you my utmost gratitude since you are inheriting the will. Alan wonders what this means, and says that the ring is being absorbed, and it looks like the restriction was applied successfully. She then says that she shall forever be watching him. Back to the present. Time begins to unfreeze as Evan is yelling, telling him that second tier magic won't work. And as he yells this right behind Alan, Alan looks up and says that this sphere of lightning that ought to look brilliant now looks pitiful, even though he's pouring in all of his mana. No matter how hard he trains, this is his limit. But it's now time for him to test the restrictions and the price that he paid for greater power. If you've watched till the end, comment fire. So let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this. Leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.